Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Today we'll be looking at a classic Sony mascot. Well, okay, so he's not a classic Sony mascot anymore, but he is in my heart. I grew up playing Crash Bandicoot. Not so much the original trilogy. I played a few, but I didn't really get into it. It was way too hard for me as a kid. But my favorite Crash game for the longest time was Twinsanity, and I loved it. So yeah, I grew up playing these games, and I'm so excited to see Crash being back in action. And man, he looks better than ever before. Luckily for Crash Bandicoot, Activision took the reins of this beloved franchise and gave the original trilogy the remastered it deserved, back in 2017. The Crash Bandicoot Insane trilogy was a huge success, and since then fans have been clamoring for a new Crash Bandicoot game. And now we are here in this crazy, insane year. Toys for Bob, the studio behind the Spyro Reignited trilogy, were behind the development of Crash 4 It's About Time. There's a lot riding on this game, and there hasn't been a brand new Crash game in years. So does Crash 4 live up to the legacy of the original trilogy? Without further ado, let's get into it. The story, in short, is that there's an evil doctor who is creating problems with special magical masks. These masks are causing dimensional portals, breaking open, revealing crazy worlds for you to go through. Of course, my favorite baddie, Dr. Neo Cortex, is a part of it, and he is as funny as ever. You play as Crash and his sister Coco, and together you travel throughout the different dimensions to defeat the bad guys. Along the way, you'll meet some allies, and you can even play as some of them for a short time, but we'll get into that later. There are also different masks throughout the story you will collect to progress. And that's about it. It's a simple plot, but that's okay because the characters are charming and likable, plus the gameplay is where the focus should be in a Crash game. And Crash 4 It's About Time is no different. What have I got? In my opinion, this is the smoothest gameplay in the series, period. Crash and Coco play amazing, which is great because this game can get real difficult real quick. If you have never played a Crash game, this difficulty may come as a shock to you. Luckily for newcomers, they make it more accessible than ever before. First off, they have two modes of playing the main game. First is Classic, where you have a limited amount of lives, and the other one is Modern mode, where you have unlimited lives. Now you may think because I grew up playing Crash games that I would pick the Classic mode. Yeah, no, I'm not dealing with that. Look, I enjoyed playing through the Insane trilogy, but man, keeping up with the amount of lives I've had just gave me a big headache. It just made the game longer to play through. No thanks. This is a great addition in my opinion. The more options, the better. There's also a little ring under your characters so you can see where you'll land. Thank you, Toys for Bob. Of course, you can remove this option if you want in the options menu. I didn't do that because I like it, and I've always had a hard time platforming in a Crash game, so I'm okay with this change. For those who haven't played a Crash game, Crash 4 is a linear 3D platformer that is very unique compared to games like Mario. It's a linear style game with a camera that follows you from behind so that you're not focused on the camera and then you end up dying because of it. Crash is definitely in its own little unique genre. While the games are mostly platformers, they aren't quite like anything else on the market. Only a Crash game would be crazy enough to have the player run towards the camera. Of course, other games have adopted this idea, but Crash was the first, or at least the first to make it popular. What have I got? Whoa! Whoa! But seriously, nothing hurts me more in life than dying by something I couldn't see coming. Frustrations aside, these segments are great and filled with tense moments. Now each level has crates and Wampa fruit scattered throughout. All these years later, I'm still trying to figure out what the heck a Wampa fruit is. Collect enough fruit and you'll be rewarded with gems. In Classic mode, if you collect 100 fruit, you get an extra life. But in Modern mode, you don't need to worry about it. It's just for gems. If you collect enough gems in a level, then you collect a costume, which is amazing. Costumes are a great reward for all your sweat, blood, and tears. That's not all, because you can also nab yourself some bonus levels in the form of lost tapes. If you think the normal levels are hard, then good luck. Crash games have always been made to played over and over again, and luckily this game does a great job at encouraging you to play through levels multiple times. There are even inverted levels where you'll go through the same level but everything's swapped, everything's inverted. Not only that, but each level has its own little visual gimmick to it. Some levels will have it look like colored pencils, other levels just take away the whole entire color palette. but each one has a cool, unique, inverted look to it. I wish you can mix and match. Like, I wish you could play this one in a colored pencil style or this one in a 1930s style. But overall, I love the change in pace. And if you have trouble getting gems, you can always get gems in the inverted levels to make up for the normal levels. And you can still get that costume you've been going after. But we also can't forget about the different characters you play. You'll mostly play as Crash and his sister Coco, and they both play exactly alike, so you can change them whenever you want. You'll meet Tana sometime in the game that has more to her moveset, like a grappling hook and the ability to wall jump, and adds an extra level of traversal within her specific levels. And the same could be said about Dingodile. Playing as an old Crash villain is amazing. He also comes with a unique moveset with his trusty vacuum. It's much more interesting than I make it out to be, but last but certainly not least is my favorite Crash villain, Dr. Neocortex, the craziest scientist. But I don't really like the way he plays. His levels are more about platforming puzzles. Cortex uses his gun to change enemies into platforms. However, he can only do 2 settings, and I don't know, I'm just not the biggest fan of how he moves. It's not my favorite, but I'm glad to see him in here and playable nonetheless. Holy crap, I've gone this long and I haven't even mentioned the mask and their different abilities that change the way you play. The first mask you get gives you the ability to switch between dimensions, specifically the objects in the dimensions. You'll see these blue ghostly objects, and then you can just change the dimensions with just the trigger. These puzzles can be really fun and really engaging, and they really keep you on your toes. The second one is probably my least favorite. You go into this infinite spin, and you get 2 massive jumps with it, allowing you to cross large gaps in the world. For some reason, this just doesn't jive with me well. Or at least it did at first. It grew on me throughout the game, but at first I just wasn't liking it too much, at least compared to the other mask we have. The third one is my favorite mask. It slows down time, so falling debris is no problem anymore because you can freeze time and just jump on them. Even nitro boxes, the boxes that kill you instantly when you touch them, don't go off when you touch them in this mode, which is amazing and really makes you feel powerful. That is when it turns off right when you're on the boxes. The fourth mask is the trippiest because you're inverting gravity itself. You'll have Crash flipping all over the place, and man, this makes platforming a heck of a lot harder than it should be. I've always had a tough time with upside down levels, and it's here in full force. But I love it. I love the challenge, and I love all these different masks and how they just really change up the gameplay for you. I wouldn't necessarily call them gimmicks. They're a core part of the gameplay now, and I'm all here for it because I love these masks, and I love how they just change up the gameplay in fun little ways.
What have I got?
Toys for Bob did an incredible job with the Spyro trilogy, so when I heard they were making the new Crash game, I was all on board. At first I didn't know how to feel about the art style, but after playing 5 seconds of the game, I was blown away. They went for a more stylized art style, and I love it. Such a good move on their part. There's so much love put into each level, and there's so much detail in the background. Crash games are often linear, but the development team made this world look more open than ever before. Of course, it's still linear, but the world is so fleshed out that you kind of forget after a while. The colors pop and each character is beautifully animated. It's almost like a cartoon how smooth each character is when they move. The graphics, in short, are just stunning in every aspect. Overall, this is a great package for those who love platformers. Honestly, this game became my favorite Crash game, destroying Twinsanity in its path. I still love Twinsanity, but man, I gotta give it to Toys for Bob because man, they did an amazing job. But keep this in mind, I didn't completely finish this game. I mean 100% this game. Getting all the collectibles, doing all the time trials, all that. I didn't do it. I did not 100% complete this because this game can get overwhelming with all all the time relics, gems, and boxes that inhabit each level. Getting each box can be frustrating, but if you go through it more casually, it'll be more enjoyable. Just don't let the game stress you out, because it can, and it will. I personally like this game better than the original trilogy and the games that came after. Like I said, Twin Sanity used to be my favorite game, but let's be honest, it's a half-baked game at best. Filled with charm, but half-baked. Crash 4 is so much better. I hope this game does well so Crash can get even more amazing games like this in the future. If you have been on the fence or just haven't played a Crash game, it controls the best in the series and has tons of collectibles. The only thing I would be concerned about is the difficulty getting all the collectibles. Heck, I'm not going to do it, that's for sure, but they are there for those wanting to be a completionist. And I get that. I'm just not going to do it. There's just so much stress that goes into it. Let me know below what you thought about the game. Do you hate it? Do you love it like I do? Have you not played it yet? Let me know in the comments below. And to those who have yet to play it, good luck and Godspeed.